Hi, this is Scott Bissessar of ChangeView. Thank you again for joining us for another change management video. This post is for C-suite sponsors, change leaders, change advisors, and basically every one of us that is now going through COVID. This video accompanies our blog post on the post-COVID impact on change management, the function. We had quite a few of these things. And there's a link in this message to that blog so that you can find it later on and go see some of the background around this. So let's get right down to it. We thought we'd share with you today what it's like to work with the behavioral dynamics of change. Change advisors typically do this with their clients when they're trying to get them to become aware of something that's lying outside of their awareness zone around their behaviors, either as individuals, team leaders, or in the teams themselves or the larger organization. So it's an awareness exercise. In this case, we want to focus on COVID's impact on behaviors in individuals and companies. So let's take a look at that. COVID has put everyone in an emergent versus a planned change approach. It's very important to actually take stock of that. A planned change approach, many of you are familiar with, it comes from years and years of doing change in organizations, which is a bit more the linear, milestone-driven waterfall approach. It's a lot more tactile and it makes sense quite intuitively to everyone. Emergent change is meant to deal with what we're dealing with now, which is the lack of ability to have a defined future state, right? If you're clear about your future state, it's much easier to say, here's where we're going, this is what we need to do to make changes. COVID has changed that. COVID is an emergent force. It's creating an inability to define your future state, and as a result, it creates a lot of ambiguity, right? So as emergent change is helpful in that sense, there's also another side to that emergent change piece, which is you can be perpetually in a state of emergent change dealing, and that is actually not a helpful thing in organizations because you tend not to get as much work done, right? So ambiguity is high. That's the fourth letter A in the VUCA term. Please look up VUCA if you're not familiar with it. And as that high ambiguity continues to perpetuate, we have a tendency to shy away from the planning activity, and that is a killer. It results in a lot less work getting done. So what to do, right? Well, how can we actually deal with all of this perpetual ambiguity? How do we deal with it as individuals and leaders? How do we deal with it in our families? How do we deal with it with our teams and organizations? And a lot of stress is obviously brought with this, right? So here's what to look for. The constant ambiguity can make you go on thinking that this uncertainty will dominate, so you find yourself backing away from the planning function. And as a result, that kills execution. Here's a simple thing to think of. Now, this is not a panacea. This is not like the be-all, end-all. It's just that there are some things we can't do. So there's some things we can do that are better than others. And what we're suggesting is if you can find a way to sit quietly, do some reflection, understand the impact that ambiguity is bringing, and then shift your approach in change more towards agile approaches. And agile approaches are helpful because they shift you away from a process orientation to a product orientation. So you look more firmly on shorter term deliverables and getting things done, the things that you can do because the time frame is now shrunk. You can, in consequence, actually get to a little bit more planning and a little more clarity about what you can do in the shorter term. So that brings a sense of energy and invigorated energy towards the task of the people that you're working with. And prioritizing your products enables you to get more concrete on what you're doing so you can actually get to actions. So it's a way to deal with the ambiguity, not by killing the ambiguity, but shifting your process so that you can actually deal with the ambiguity better. All right. If that all makes sense, that's a way to think about modifications, small modifications to your change management approach, using these sort of reflective sessions to look at behavioral dynamics associated with COVID, understanding what those impacts are, realizing that you're in them and unhooking yourself from them, really helpful, right? And the benefits, of course, are you can actually get to work now. So you can actually do things, you can actually shift the way that you're working towards more productive cycles and shift away from reactive, right? This reaction, oh my goodness, things are happening, to a little bit more in the proactive. Let's do a little bit more about mitigating what we have going on and moving towards actions, right? How can you do this in your change management approach? Give us a call. We can talk you through the myriad of different things that you can do. One thing you can do if you're in teams looking at change is take a look at our change risk assessment. It's meant to do a dynamic reassessment of your priorities and risks in the current moment and reorient you quickly towards the future. That's it. Don't want to rattle on too long. Thank you again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you at another session soon. Bye-bye.